All right, lads and lasses, and good day, mates. Welcome to another episode of the Toon on the podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's #1 podcast for all things Newcastle United. We are #1. We've just come off the back of the live watch along, where Newcastle took on Southampton at St James's Park. It ended 3-1 to the mighty shithouse Mags. Wilson picking up a brace and Theo Wallcott chipping in with his routine goal against Newcastle, except this time it was an own goal. And Stuart Armstrong getting the one for Southampton. We obviously are doing this straight after the game, so it is still very early in the morning. It's just gone 1:10 a.m. here in Queensland, Australia. Craig is absolutely shafted. How are you going, mate? Apart from being shafted.
That second half was energy sapping, and I am well and truly shagged right now. But looking forward to doing this. It's been a while since we've done a watch along, and it's been a while since we've done an instant reaction. So be glad to see how much of any of it we'll remember.
And Mark, yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel kind of energized now, which is like the wrong time of night to get a bit of energy in, isn't it?
That's always the problem with these matches, isn't it? It's like it finishes at stupid o'clock in the morning, and like it's 1 a.m. and I'm buzzing. Great grandstand finish to that game. Could have easily been a few more towards the end of that match. And yeah, get this done, and then I'm going to struggle to get to sleep.
Yeah, it could have been a completely different game. We'll get into that in just a second. Let's have a quick look at the teams. It was Nick Pope at the back.
Poopy.
Trips, Fab Shaw, Sven Botman, Dan Burn, Bruno G, Joe Willock, Joe Linton, Jacob Murphy, Anthony Gordon, and Alexander Isak. Now, we did touch on this in the live watch along. The big omission in that lineup, Craig, was the fact that Sean Longy did not make the squad. Tell us why that was.
Talk is he's got a broken foot from that tackle from James Tarkowski in the Everton game.
James Shithowski, who managed to break his ankle by all accounts and not give away a penalty, not even a free kick, not even a yellow card, nothing at all. On the replays, it was obviously a bad tackle. I don't know what the hell VAR is playing at. Let's not get into that. It's too early to get annoyed about VAR. We've got a really good performance and result to talk about, so we'll just skip ahead. Mark, any other concerns before we went to this game with that lineup? I did actually want to see Wilson up front and Isak down the left rather than Gordon starting. What did you make of that start?
Yeah, I think that was the only thing that I think a lot of us were hoping that we would see both of them together, given the form that they've been in, and that they seem to have a nice bond when they play on the pitch together. They have good link-up play. But yeah, look, all hail Eddie Howe, the tactical genius that he is. As long as we keep winning games, I'm not gonna criticize anything in terms of player selection.
You just can't, can you? While it keeps working, there's nothing you can say. Let's have a look at Saints. It was McCarthy at the back, Walker Peters, Bella-Kotcher, who was returning from injury, I think, Bednarak, Lianco, Jenabo, Lavia, Ward-Prowse returning from a bout of illness midweek, Stuart Armstrong, Kamaldeen, and Alcatraz. Not really, that's not how you pronounce it, but Alcatraz. And our armour was on the bench. I was kind of hoping to see Maitland-Niles at the back again, Craig, because he was absolutely dreadful the last time we played these guys. And I was kind of happy not to see Wallcott starting. Adam Armstrong was a handful the last few times we played them as well. So what did you make of the start?
It was to be expected from what people were saying online, from some of the forums I'd read or some of the other podcasts that I generally watch before our games. A few of them, like I said, were just returned from injury, so maybe there's a little bit of rust in there. But yeah, it was as expected.
Mark, anything that leapt out to you with that one? Obviously, Ward-Prowse is a danger. It doesn't matter where he is or what he's doing. He's always a danger in these games.
Look, I mean, as you said, Maitland-Niles, I think Salada as well. I think they've both had issues with us in the past few games this season. I mean, Salada saw a red card in the cup game that we played against them. So having them not in the side, yeah, potentially we would like to have had those in to take some advantage of them, but it wasn't needed in the end. But yeah, as we'll get into, a bit of a tricky start, and that team, I think the first half performance from them, as we'll say, those players did themselves proud.
Yeah, no, look, this game I was a little bit worried about. I did predict a 3-1 win, so that's got to be like the first time in bloody history that I've actually managed to get a prediction correct. And Dimmy was quick on there to whinge about it, and so was Bobby, by the way. Not having that. But I was expecting this to be a tough game. I didn't expect it, though, Craig, to be as difficult in that first half as what it turned out to be. Now, there were shades, I think, a little bit of the Everton game where Everton and maybe even the Villa game where they took the game to us. I think the difference between the Everton game in particular and this game was that Everton came out. Everton came out the blocks. Yeah, that's right, with a ton of pressure, ton of energy, and kind of a little bit like a headless chicken sort of approach where they just pile forward and try to do everything they could, and it was working, mind you. I mean, it was working in their favour for good stretches in that first half against Newcastle down at Goodison Park there. But what they didn't do was get the goal in that pressure, in that moment where you have pressure. And Newcastle managed to turn the screw eventually and then go out 4-1 winners quite comfortably in the end. This Southampton was slightly different, wasn't it? How did you see this first half with the way Southampton approached and how they tackled the Newcastle team?
Well, they're absolutely right on the start of it. And again, within the first minute, we could be 1-0 down. They had a good chance right at the beginning. Pope managed to get down quick to his right. Again, that would have been a terrible start. In a few games, we've started terribly. Villa and West Ham spring to mind big time on those ones.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not often we start like that at home either. Normally, we're on the front foot. We're normally the ones dominating everything. But yeah, totally underwhelming opening 10, 15, 20 minutes. And you would think the benefit of the doubt that Southampton were the better team within that opening half.
I would, if a neutral was looking at that game, I would think Southampton were the home team the way they were controlling the game there, Mark. Right. I mean, we just looked completely jaded. We didn't look like we were even like alert to any of this game. Southampton were controlling the game very well, but they weren't doing what Everton did. They weren't just piling forward like headless chickens. They actually had control, didn't they?
They played it at like a really good pace. They weren't reckless with their forays forward. They were comfortable on the ball. I think they pressured us enough without doing what Everton did and what Villa did, where they really gave us problems in possession. So like we weren't hurried that much, but we still made a few sloppy mistakes. We just seemed really off the pace, and the worry. I guess the worry is this is now becoming a bit of a trend for us where we have these slow starts in games at the moment, and we're struggling to kind of assert our dominance on the game from the first whistle. And we're giving these early chances away, which, as you said, it's like we could have easily been 1-0 down within a minute and a half. And
again,
that again, and this is like a few games now that we've been very lucky, I'd say, to not be 1-0 so early in the game.
And Arsenal's next. Like these are players who will be able to put those opportunities away if you present them to them on a plate like that. I just didn't see the press. I didn't see, and I haven't seen it for a little while now. I haven't seen that. I don't know if it's because teams have worked us out, like how to play against us, at least for part of the game, or if it's just us getting to the end of the season and just being absolutely knackered. I mean, you've got to remember the press that we had pre-World Cup was just relentless. It was immense. It was obviously the start of the season, though. Then you go on the World Cup, everyone's still playing. Not many people managed to get a break there. Then you come out of it and we have that blip that goes on for God knows how many games, 6 or 7 games, I think it was, where we couldn't get a win. We just drew everything. Didn't lose, which was the important part. But the press wasn't there. And I haven't seen it again today. I didn't see it against Everton. At least not in the first half. I did see it towards the second half, towards the end of the second half in this game, Craig. But would you say that are we just looking knackered, like mentally and physically? Are we just starting to look knackered? I mean, our squad isn't very big, and the options on the bench aren't very good on the whole. Are we just looking completely buggered at this point? Are we just waiting to get over the line and be done?
Fatigue has to be setting in. It has to be for every team, not just ours. But again, because our squad is so small, and we've got a very limited, good quality starting 11, fatigue is probably kicking in that little bit more with our squad because we don't have that much room for rotation, especially with, again, 2 fairly key players out at the minute, being Longstaff and Maxi. I'd imagine that fatigue could potentially just get worse or set in quicker as the next few games go on. But yeah, I mean, the energy was obviously there in the second half, so I don't know where it was hiding in the first. But
Mm-hmm.
fatigue is definitely going to be a factor. It's just a case of can we maintain the energy levels for the remaining 5-6 games.
Yeah, well, look, we'll get in the second half in a minute. But Mark, I want to pick up on that point about Sean Nuggy. He obviously was a huge miss. He was a huge miss against Villa, and he came on in the second half, as we discussed in the watch along. And that game was gone by then, pretty much. The first half, we really struggled to cope with the press and the controlled play from Southampton. And Longy does all the running. He's the fittest bloke in the entire team. It often doesn't go noticed, but he's running on constantly like 12 miles a game, well beyond the next guy behind him. Did that first half reflect the missing part of the game that Longy brings, or was it just with obviously with Gordon playing, he hasn't played with his team that much, certainly not from the start of a game. Longy's in there, who normally does the hard yards. Do you think we just missed that and Southampton took advantage? Could that have been the problem?
I think Longstaff brings not only the running in midfield to allow other players to play their own games more natural, because he's doing all of the dirty work in midfield, but because we've had a shift of position for some of the players, so we've now moved Joe Linton from the left wing into midfield to cover for Longstaff's absence. I think that's kind of upset some of the balance to the link-up play that we have, because I mean, in the games previously to this, Willock and Joe Linton have been absolutely like different level in terms of almost like this telepathic link between them, where one will bomb forward while the other one drops back, and then they'll sort of change around again. We were desperately missing that, and Gordon's just not providing that same link up. He was looking good going forward, but maybe the fact that he's not kind of got that understanding yet with his teammates, because he hasn't played that many games and he's not really found that settled role. Maybe that's just sort of creating that weak spot where he's fine to bomb forward, but he's not pressing enough, or he's not tracking back enough in the right places, where Joe Linton will do that, Willock will do that while Longstaff's in the team. So I think, look, we're missing Longstaff in terms of what he offers himself, but I think we're also shifting things around because he's not there. That's probably also affecting how we're playing.
Yeah, and the point you made, Craig, about that was that it's just as well this has happened with the last few games to go, isn't it? I mean, if this had been sort of 10 games previous or something, and we were right in the middle of all those points that we had to pick up, and Longy is probably, if it's as bad as it sounds, like if it's a proper ankle injury or foot injury, his season's probably over. That's kind of like what's being suggested on socials. Like, we would have been really struggling without him if it had happened sooner in the season, wouldn't we? Like, how are we going to deal with the lack of Longstaff in these next few games, particularly the next one against Arsenal, where we do really need those legs?
Well, it's a question I raised there with Mark at halftime. Are we going to miss Longstaff as much as we missed Bruno? Is Longstaff that much an integral part of the starting 11 now?
I think he probably is.
Based off that,
I think he probably is.
I think you said he absolutely is, Mark. Yeah, and
but the both
how do we cover that? Because as good as Big Joe is, he just doesn't have the same style of play as what Longstaff does. He doesn't sit as deep. He just can't do what Longstaff does, and it's a very unique role he's got in the squad because we've got nobody else that can do that role for him. And that's, again, another part of having a paper-thin squad of that side of things. Arsenal will pose a totally different threat. Maybe we go to a five-man midfield rather than having a 4-3-3. Who knows? But yeah, it's definitely going to be a loss for these next few games. Luckily, again, we're at the tail end of the season rather than just at the end of January or anything else, because that could have been a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, and we're still chasing for Champions League. Of course, we are within touching distance, really. I'm just looking at some of the comments coming in from Bobby here. I mean, this is probably for later on, but we probably need like two wins and a draw, according to Bobby, and we are going to secure a Champions League, all things being equal. Look, we're talking like we didn't win this game. We didn't win the first half, but Southampton did score in that first half. It was Stuart Armstrong on 41 minutes, like really bad time to concede a goal. And it was like a nothing goal, Mark. Like it just seemed like a really casual move from their left to the right, across into the middle. And what happens with Trippier?
Well, I think it started off like Bruno just loses the ball in midfield pretty easily, it has to be said as well. But again, that comes down to, I think, the fact that we just looked like we were off the pace with the ball. We just weren't sharp enough in the first half. So we get dispossessed. The Southampton player, I can't remember who it actually was at that time, but they literally just have this free run up the pitch into the box, and unchallenged, plenty of space. It's not like they bombed forward at any pace. They just literally sauntered up the pitch, crossed the ball in, and then Trippier, for some unknown reason, like is kind of pretty close to the scorer, and then
he's on him.
Just literally like steps backwards and gives him a free shot. And so it was really, really bad goal to concede, bad time to concede, but we weren't at the races in that first half, but we weren't really massively outplayed either in terms of really clear-cut chances. We did have our own chances. Gordon hit the post. Bruno had a shot that went wide. So look, it could have been a vastly different half had we scored that Gordon goal early. But a really, really bad and sloppy goal to concede just before half time.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, obviously goals change games. Bruno had that opportunity where he just blazed it like 3 meters from the right hand or the left, our right hand side of the goal when he was in a good position. I actually disagree. I think Southampton played us off the park that first half. We had majority of possession, which was a surprise when I saw the possession at half time. But the telling stat, Craig, was that we'd had 5 shots and 0 of them were actually legitimately on target, whereas Southampton was something like 4 or 5, and they had 3 or 4 on target, and one of them was a goal. So, I mean, did you think am I just being overly negative as the positive person of this podcast, or how did you see it? How did you see Southampton's overall performance against us in that first half?
I thought it was a performance of a team that didn't look bottom of the Premier League, to be honest.
Fair to say, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they were, like you said, as a neutral, they looked as though they should be the home team. They were controlling it at times. They were making us sloppy possession, making us make mistakes, give away stupid free kicks, albeit not in daft positions or anything like that. But there wasn't a chance where we put together a good, solid 15, 20, 25 passes just to regain any type of composure, because they were always there in our face. They'd done the pressing game that we were doing earlier on in the season. And like you said, in the build-up of the watch-along, we don't seem to be able to cope when we got the press on ourselves. But yeah, it was a good performance from Southampton in that first half. We were definitely off the gas. But we then go in for the half-time, and what a half-time team talk that must have been from King Eddie.
Well, let's talk about that, because it was 1-0 down at half-time, Mark. We were sort of thinking, is Eddie going to change it? Is he going to do that half-time change that he did against Brentford and completely change the nature of that second half? Or was he going to wait till 60, 65 minutes to make some kind of change? As it was, he took off Gordon and brought on Wilson and did a bit of a reshuffle in the middle. Was that a brave decision? I mean, I think Gordon will probably find himself being a bit unfairly treated there, because he was, as I said before, he was the only person in that first half who looked literally like he was wanting to get forward and make things happen when everyone else is standing around like a bunch of statues for the large part. Do you think he was unlucky to get hauled off at half time there? And what did he make of the change that Eddie did make by bringing on Wilson in, but also keeping Isaac on as well?
I think it's like it made a lot of sense to bring Wilson on. I think Wilson is probably more natural as an out and out forward than Isak. Isak likes to sort of drop deep, pick the ball up, so he needs that person to play off. So I think that kind of made a lot of sense. I think Gordon's probably a little bit hard done by in terms of his creativity in the first half was probably our only creative outlet, and that's kind of like a little bit harsh on him to then get hiked off at half time. But having said that, what's Eddie seen to do that? I mean, is it that Gordon's like bombing forward and he's making loads of like sort of forward moves, but he's leaving space behind him, and or he's slacking off with other parts of his game? Excuse me. But that's something that I think we probably need to go back and rewatch rewatch the first half a bit more and pay a bit more attention to what Gordon's overall game was. But Eddie's clearly seen something there, and it's hard to complain at the results that he's getting when he's making these changes. But yeah, a bit of a ballsy call off Eddie Howe to make those changes. But yeah, paid dividends straight away.
I think what I said in the start of the second half is I think Eddie Howe went back to what he was comfortable with. He went back to, Willock didn't do a lot in that half. Murphy did very little in that half. There's a few players that didn't do a great deal. Gordon was the one who was really making all the strides down the left in particular. And I think he just wanted to go back to something he felt more comfortable with, something that he was, a little bit more sure of would get a result out of this game. Being 1-0 down, he obviously wanted to bring on Wilson to give more of a goal threat. Isaac down the left and Wilson up front is just a brilliant combination. And I know you said that at the start, before the kickoff, Craig, that it meant that there wouldn't be really a way of refreshing the lineup up front. And I was saying, I kind of half joked, but you could potentially stick Joe Linton up there if you had to, if you really wanted to just change things and see the game out or whatever. But I really wanted to see that game start with Isaac down the left, Wilson up front. That second half, though, the way we started that second half, it was like a completely different team, wasn't it? Like we were just like the Newcastle of old. We were just absolutely at them, full throttle, right from the first whistle. It was just brilliant, wasn't it?
It was like the first half from Spurs all over again. It was literally the same type of tempo, and the intensity was there, the aggression was there. There's nothing that you can say in that second half that was a negative performance from any player in a black and white shirt. Nick Pope, he could have stayed in there, the changing rooms at half time. I don't think he got a touch in the second half. Genuinely, that was a sensational second half performance. And again, another rocket from Eddie has done the trick. And Callum Wilson, he's had a few doubts this season, a few from me as well, but he's proven me wrong week in, week out, and I'm more than happy for him to do so.
Top scorer by 2 or 3 goals now, isn't it?
Another brace from him.
He's just overhauled Miggy and who else is on double figures? I forget now.
Isak.
Big Dog, of course, yeah. So he's just overhauled both of those two, and he's been injured for bloody ages as well. Mark, 55 minutes. It took us 10 minutes of, I would say, constant pressure from Newcastle. Like by this point, it's only 10 minutes in, but like I could say the same thing by the time he scores his second goal on 80 minutes. Southampton just did not get out of their dressing room for the second half. They stayed in their own half. They set up the bloody coronation tables, ready for Prince Charles to come strolling past in his $4 billion trolley or wherever he's in, all hailing the new king. 55 minutes. Talk us through that goal from Wilson. He just changes games, doesn't he, Wilson? Talk us through that goal. I can't remember it.
He does. He's like the ultimate fox in the box. I know we've established like Lee's brain is just not quite with it in terms of his short term and medium term memory apparently. No, so basically Isak picks it up on the left hand side, dribbles at players, cuts inside, and then puts an absolute peach of a ball through. I think it took a little deflection off the defender. Otherwise, it probably would have been a little bit more comfortable for Wilson. It was slightly behind him, but he's literally just turned his body out and just flicked it in at an obscure angle straight into the side netting, basically. Absolutely cracking finish, great build-up play from Isak. We were just an absolutely different team. Like both sets of players just like swapped roles in that second half. Like Southampton basically didn't get out of first gear, and Newcastle were in their face. They were winning the ball back. They were constantly pressuring them, and Southampton started to sit back in that first 10-minute spell, inviting pressure onto them. And we were saying, our forte has definitely not been scoring goals while teams are sitting with that low block and defending deep against us this season. So we were all concerned. I think it's safe to say. But as soon as that goal went in, it was like, well, here we go. Like we're back in it. The crowd lifted. To me, it seems that we've got to remember that this was the third game in a week again for us, and we play at such a high tempo that maybe there was an element where in the first half we were trying to just sort of see the game out. We were trying to just let Southampton do what Everton did and blow themselves out of puff in the first half, and then our fitness level is such that we can overpower teams in the second half without necessarily exerting ourselves too much, given that we have a paper thin squad, given that we exert ourselves a lot, and given that we've got some insanely important games coming up soon.
Yeah, I mean but Southampton didn't do what Everton did. They didn't just go on hold. Like we've already said, they actually controlled very well. They just didn't come out second half. And Craig, Wilson makes all the difference. Isaac down the left, he's like ASM, but with an end product. Sometimes, like you can find a pass and you can actually score a goal as well. And after that goal, we just kept the pressure on. Like it was the crowd was up. Because the crowd, let's be honest, the crowd had went quiet by the end of that first half. Like they were, they were all like they were about as sleepy as everyone on the pitch. I know Dimmy's going to listen to this and be like, "We weren't that bad, lads," but we weren't very good at all. Didn't have a shot on target, man. It was poor. And they wake up, and then it takes a little while. There's a goal ruled off in the middle. Rightly so, you'd say, wouldn't you, Craig? There was that definite offside. That took about 16 minutes for the VAR to figure out that it was blatantly half a body offside. Yeah. What did you make of that?
Yeah, it was all blatant offside. That the only thing I think the reason why it took them that long is they were sitting in a darkened room and the TV was turned off, or they were waiting to see if the ball came off a Southampton defender last, which looking at it real time, you could see it didn't. And I understand that they want to take the time, they want to get the right decision. But when that right decision takes a good 4 or 5 minutes, just go on the original on-field decision. We've had this decision on VAR many times, and we'll continue to have this decision on VAR many times more. It disrupts the flow of the game. It slows the pace of the game down. Luckily, it didn't affect the result of the game, thankfully. And thankfully, we kept the momentum going as well, because, again, our heads could have dropped because of such a long break in play.
I was going to say, I mean, it could have easily been one of those ones where it's like, all right, we've just done all that huffing and puffing. We think we've got the second goal. The crowd suddenly is hushed. It's 5 minutes later. Everyone's, had their bovril. And it's been ruled off. And it's like, oh, great, right, we've got to build ourselves up again. But we didn't. We kept on plugging away. And Theo Wallcott, Mark, now he loves scoring against Newcastle, doesn't he? And he got on the score sheet once again today. Tell us what happened to Theo Wallcott.
I'll admit that we had a couple of extra chances in the middle of that. I think. I mean, we thought Botman had kind of had scored this one, but it came in from a corner. Botman's like been in and around. He's headed the ball towards goal in his own mind, which was basically sailing out for a throw in, and it's literally hit Wallcott, and he couldn't do anything about it other than just divert it into his own net, which was quite poetic given how many goals he has actually scored against us over the years. So, a bit of payback on that one, and done us a nice little favour, which we gratefully accept.
Absolutely. I will just cut in here and just mention the score that's going on right now. It's Liverpool at home against Tottenham Hotspur. Liverpool are 2-0 up after 5 minutes.
Ooh.
Wow.
I think Spurs are going to lose that 5th position.
They're going to sack their manager and get some refunds back to fans yet again, eh?
Given the way Liverpool started this season, they have really, really pulled the socks up. So I mean, they're probably going to be the ones to watch, aren't they? Yeah. They're kind of been coming up behind the scenes there. There's a little bit of a dark horse. All right, look, it took so Wilson scored in 55, Wallcott scored in 79. And I said on the live watch along that as soon as Newcastle get ahead, or as soon as they smell blood, we are just absolutely relentless against these kind of teams. We just go for the jugular. And it took 1 more minute for us to get our second goal, Craig. It was Callum Wilson once again to make it 3-1. Talk us through that goal.
Pressure from, was Murphy still on the pitch then, or was it Miggy? I can't remember who.
I
think maybe Miggy. But yeah, pressure on the left back would have been. Good bit of pressure, just push him down and just forced him into a mistake. Callum Wilson rounds a keeper, sends a Gallagher into raptures.
And Mark, you're thinking 3-1, 10 minutes still to go, and as it turned out, there was 6 minutes extra time. You're thinking this is going to be another 4, 5, 6, because Saints just could not get out of their own half at all.
We were still creating chances like right up until the final whistle. But I think that maybe Southampton had like a few minutes towards the end where they started to get up towards their own half, but like never created anything. We cut everything out. But Newcastle was still creating clear-cut chances. Miggy was causing problems. He was harassing people. Big Dog didn't go off till quite late, but even when he went off, Anderson comes on and with his first touch could have easily scored.
I
mean, it was just like the Newcastle that we've come to know and love this season. That just like a dog with a bone. The team spirits shone again. Never say die attitude, and they just sort of they got their noses in front and just would not let go.
We just don't stop, do we? Just keep on going. We just think, right, we got 3, let's get 6. I mean, Craig, that shot from Wilson off the crossbar. As you said at the time, I don't think I've ever seen the same shot bounce off the crossbar twice. It was inches away from a hat-trick, wasn't it? And it would have been well deserved from Wilson as well.
Oh God, yeah. It was a weird shot because after I was seeing the replay, I thought maybe you should have left it for Anderson. I think Anderson was in a better position.
Yeah, probably was.
Yeah, I think the ball was slightly behind Wilson, hence why he got the lift on it and off a crossbar. But it obviously clips the top of the crossbar somehow, goes vertically straight up, then it's straight back down again somehow.
Yeah, spin on it. Yeah, that's a spin on it.
On the ball. Yeah,
kind of.
And then it bounces out for a goal kick. I think Bruno was waiting on the goal line to tap it in as well, but obviously it didn't follow him. That was one of the strangest combinations I've ever seen at the Gallagher end, apart from when Big Joe somehow managed to clear his own shot. We always seem to get one of those this season, don't we? It was. It would have been unjust if he hadn't have got his hat-trick. Unfortunately, he didn't. He's due one. I mean, how many braces has he had for the Toon now? I don't think he's ever got a hat-trick for us yet.
It's been a few in the last few games, even. Yeah, I mean, we didn't get the third assist of the century in this one, I don't think. So we'll have to. That's the end of our run of assists of the century. Just the 2. Still a pretty good run, though. And as it turns out, anyway, at the end of the day, the game's finished. The 6 minutes extra time, but it's all over. It's 3-1 to Newcastle. And the mighty Mags, the mighty time-wasting shithouse Mags, which, by the way, Southampton were wasting a shit ton of time.
They were awful. They were awful at it, yeah.
I don't mind it if there's some balance, but everyone will just come out and say that we're a bunch of shithouse Mags. Yeah, whatever. Let's have a look at the table here. This is where we ended up. It was some of these games are still going on. So this is currently the live table. So Man City at the top there on 76 points with a game in hand over Arsenal, who look like they've completely ballsed it up. Arsenal with 40 goal difference on 75 points. Newcastle in third with 34 goal difference. And I'll tell you what, I would not put it past the mighty Mags to beat Arsenal's goal difference. So we're 10 points behind Arsenal now. We play them next, of course. We keep Man United in 4th place with their 1-0 win over Aston Villa. They're on 63 points with 10 goal difference and the game in hand still, so they can go above us. Liverpool are currently now occupying 5th place with that current, as we are speaking, 2-0 lead over Spurs. Let me just refresh in case it's 5-0 by now.
It's still 2-0.
Nope, still 2-0. All right, I'll tell you what, they're shite, these Liverpool lads, aren't they? We would have been 4-0 by now. Absolutely rubbish. And if that stays the way it is, which it probably will, Spurs will drop down to 6th with 54 points and a minuscule 6 goal difference. But I can imagine Liverpool will probably get 1 or 2 more goals. So you never know. Aston Villa could still end up moving up to 6 at this rate. I
can see Tottenham missing out on Europe the way they're going altogether.
Yeah,
they're going to finish like 8th or 9th at this rate.
They're in a bit of free fall, aren't they? But look at us. 3rd, 65 points. We need, according to Bobby, I think he said 2 wins, did he say, and a draw? And that is more or less us completely guaranteed. Brighton can still make 73, but it's going to be very unlikely for them to do that. So 2 wins and a draw is what our statistician Bobby says that we need to secure a return to Champions League football in 20 years. Craig, not bad, is it?
It's not bad at all. Bright lights of the Champions League is heading back to Tyneside at this rate. And I can't wait to download the Champions League theme tune to my mobile and have it as my ringtone. and wait for that first game of the season, because at this minute, those glory days are coming back.
Like as if it hasn't been on there for the last 10 games or something. How are you, man? Give our.
It's on there, but I don't play it.
All right. Well, let's have a look at some stats. I forgot to present these stats from the game there. Where have they gone? Just want to round out the review of the game. So possession to Newcastle was 64 in favour to Southampton's 36. In the end, we had 22 shots to their 4. And we had 5 on target to their 3. Now, I'll be honest here, that 4 and that 3 from Southampton was the first half.
Aye.
They didn't have a single shot and not a single shot on target. That was literally 4 and 3 from the first half. That's how much we dominated them in the second half and how poor they were compared to how well they'd played in the first half. Complete collapse from Southampton. I don't know what the hell happened to them. I assume it was Eddie Howe's magic. Yeah, we had 11 corners. I think we had 6 in a row or something at one point.
Yeah.
And it was nice actually to see Trippier managed to whip the ball in without hitting the first man for once as well. Did we get a corner? Did we get a goal from a corner?
I think the Wallcott goal came from Botman's header from a corner. Maybe it was a corner, or was it a corner or a free kick? I can't remember.
Some sort of set piece, wasn't it? Yeah,
I think it might have actually been a free kick, but either way, it's still a set piece. I'm still taking it as
stick it down as a goal from a set piece. Yeah, we'll put
Liverpool are 3-0 up.
And Liverpool are 3-0 up. Oh my word! Spurs. It's not 5-0 though. What are they playing at? What time is it on that game? I wonder. 15 minutes. Yeah, still got 5 minutes to get 2 goals. All right, so Newcastle absolutely dominated. We've just seen the table. Lads, let's just wrap this up with a man of the match, please. We already did this on the live watch along, so unless you've changed your mind, this should be a bit of a procession for a certain player. Craig first.
Callum Wilson, game changer, easy decision.
Mark?
Yeah, totally agree. Changed the game on its head. Other stuff went for us as well, but moving Isak out left, I think was if Wilson hadn't scored, I probably would have given it to Isak because he did create a lot on that left-hand side. But Callum Wilson just led that line, scored 2 absolutely crucial goals. Could have had a third, could have probably had a fourth. Absolutely sensational performance off the bench from him. Yeah,
Wilson gets my vote as well. Isak was just terrifying. The fullbacks, wasn't he, down that left there? He's a hell of a dribbler. For a forward,
he's got the ball on a string.
Unbelievable, isn't it? He's like string of piss, and he still manages to somehow, have that ball connected to his foot. Anyway, all right, look, lads, that will probably do for our immediate reaction review of this game. I don't think we're going to do another one anyway, so this will just be the review of the game. It has been a pretty damn good turnout for Newcastle United. Spurs are getting spanked, so that's probably going to be good news for us. Maybe, I'm not sure. We'll see we'll have to see how that ends up at the end of the day. But for now, Newcastle end the day in 3rd, Manchester United in 4th, and it probably looks like it's going to be Liverpool in 5th. Cheers, lads, for your company. It is now nearly 2 a.m. in the morning. Let's get away. Craig is about to collapse. If you like what you hear or see, please give us a like on our YouTube channel and on Twitter. Give us a shout or a comment. And we will hopefully see you for the next one. So thanks from me. Thanks from Craig. Thanks from Mark. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, lads.